Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing why moving on attracts an ex. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details, www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing why moving on attracts an ex. So people sometimes say that it's only when they move on that their ex comes back. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 reasons why moving on attracts an ex. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is that it sets value levels. Now before we get into point number 1, I just want to say that I don't particularly like the term moving on. Yes, I used to say it as much as the next person back in the day, but now my thoughts and theories have evolved. I much prefer the term moving forward. And I just want to give you a quick difference in thought process about what I think about both of these terminology. I would say that moving on is when you theoretically close the door on your past. And I believe that moving forward is where you move forward with your life, but you leave that door open. I think it is a subtle but important difference. So I would always like to say that I suggest people move forward with their life, focusing on new experiences, new connections, living your life to the full, but leaving that door open. Whereas I think that moving on suggests the fact that you are closing that door, you're locking it, and therefore it is no longer able to be opened. But for the sake of this podcast, I'm going to be saying moving on because, of course, it is still a much more used term. So, why does moving on attract an ex? Like I said, point number 1 is about it sets value levels. So, when somebody ends a relationship, they automatically become the high-value individual. They are the dumper. They ended the relationship. It was their choice. Their choice equals higher value. What they wanted, they got. The dumpee did not want the relationship to end. The dumpee is heartbroken. The dumpee is unfortunately in a low value position. Now, this doesn't mean that they are a bad person. It doesn't mean that they are somebody who doesn't deserve a high value individual. Okay, I'm not saying that the dumpee is not somebody with high values. This is within the concept of a breakup. Somebody who ends a relationship has got their way. Therefore, it's their choice. What they said went, what they said goes. They are high value. The dumpee didn't get what they wanted. They didn't get what they was asking for, and therefore they are in the low value position. So at the time of a breakup, the value levels are skewed. The dumper is high value, the dumpee is low value. So what happens when you quote unquote move on? So if you're the dumpee, you have 2 choices. You can either contact your ex continuously, or you can, using this phrase in today's podcast, move on, or as I would like to say, move forward, living your life to the full, exploring new possibilities. If you decide the first option, if you decide to bombard your ex with communication, texting, calls, knocking on their door, waiting outside where they work, you are not showcasing high value behavior because you are not respecting and listening to what your now ex has asked for. They've asked to be left alone. They've asked to separate. They no longer want to be in a relationship, and you won't take no for an answer. So what does that say? That says subconsciously that you need them. Subconsciously, you need them to be whole. Now, you might be thinking that is exactly the case. But what I'm telling you is your ex, the dumper, does not present your only opportunity of happiness. They are not your star. They are not your light. They are not the reason why you can enjoy your life. You need to be focusing on you and understand that you are the star. You are the prize. You are high value. You're not low value. You're not somebody who needs somebody else to make themselves feel better. Even if you think this way, right now that is faulty thinking. Those feelings are temporary. You'll be absolutely fine without your ex. You can and will find somebody even better, even if you don't reconnect. So if you decide to use the first suggestion and keep bombarding your ex with messages, this is just going to show you as that low value individual that they dumped. If, however, you decide to move forward, to move on with your life, what you are showing is that you don't need your ex. What you are showing is that you have an abundance mindset. You are thinking, okay, this person doesn't want to be in my life. That's fine, because I will find somebody even better. Now, if and when your ex-dumper looks in the mirror, physically, metaphorically, they will get to the stage where they're thinking, hey, where's my dumpee? I didn't want them to chase me, but I kind of thought they would. I kind of thought they needed me. I kind of thought they would reaffirm my value, but they're not. They've gone. They've listened to what I said, and they don't need me. So am I not that great? Am I not that wonderful? Am I not that star? And what this shows is that the dumpee is the high value individual, and the ex, the dumper in this instance, can start to feel like the lower value individual, because in most instances the dumper is going to be believing that the dumpee will reaffirm their value, prop them up, put them on that pedestal, even if they can't find somebody new for themselves. Not every dumper finds somebody new, especially within the first year. Very few dumpers will find a new connection. So they're going to be single, and they're living off the thought that you desire them, you want them. If you show that you don't mind either way, you're not bothered what happens, that is going to realign the scales of value. So point number one about why moving on attracts an ex is that it sets the value levels. It suggests to the dumper that you as a dumpee do not need them, and therefore they will start to feel the intrigue regarding you that you feel regarding them, because unfortunately there is nothing more attractive than rejection. That is why you see your dumper as even more attractive than when you was in the relationship, because you see it as them rejecting you. If you as a dumpee move forward with your life, if you start to move on, this will start to tell your dumper that you don't need them, and in the back of their mind, they might start to think that you've rejected them, even though, of course, that would not make sense to somebody thinking logically. If you are in the midst of a breakup, if you are even beyond this, months, if not years, if you're not going through the best period of your life, if you are a dumper, if you're reflecting, if you're wondering why your ex-dumpee isn't chasing you anymore, you will also go through faulty thinking. You will start thinking, well, maybe they don't need me. Maybe I'm not so great. Maybe they've rejected me. I'm starting to feel more attracted to them. And that is why point number one is so important, because moving on sets the value levels. So now let's get into point number two and the second point of today's podcast about why moving on attracts an ex. And point number two is social proofing comes into play. So one of the parts about moving forward, moving on with your life, is that you are going to be making new connections. And making new connections enables social proofing. So what is social proofing? Well, I like to use the example of when, if you was to walk through a shopping mall and you saw two shops selling almost identical products, and one shop is very busy and one shop is empty, most people will be intrigued about the shop which has a lot of people inside. Now, why is this? Well, it's social proofing. If this shop has a lot of people inside, that suggests it's a good shop. That suggests it's interesting. That suggests it's offering something of value. Now, you might think logically and think, well, I'd actually rather go into the empty store because that's going to make my shopping experience a lot less stressful. But most people will be intrigued about the busy shop. And this is where social proofing comes into play with retail. And this is how we can translate that to social proofing coming into play within relationships. If you start to make new connections, this is likely to get back to your ex. Maybe by social media, maybe by friends of friends, maybe here, there and everywhere. You don't know how it could happen, but dumpers have an uncanny ability, it seems, to find out about their dumpee's life. And if and when they find out that you are spending time with new people, maybe you are going to new classes, groups or clubs, maybe you're going to parties, maybe you're dating somebody, this is social proofing. This shows that you are somebody who others want to spend time with. And if you are dating, it shows that you're a dateable individual. So the dumper is thinking, well, I ended this relationship, but this other person wants to date my dumpee. Maybe I've made a mistake. I'm single right now. Quite possibly the dumper will still be single. And they're thinking, well, my ex-dumpee is with somebody else. And who knows, maybe your ex-dumper will actually think that the person you are with is more attractive than them. Maybe they will start to feel insecure. Maybe they'll be thinking, well, if this person that I think is better than me wants my ex, why did I let them go? That is social proofing and how it can affect the dynamic of dumper and dumpee. If you want support with breakups, if you want advice, if you want to try to get your ex back and want that best possible chance, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you speak one-on-one about your unique specific problem. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more details about how I can become your coach and your teammate. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about why moving on attracts an ex. And point number 3 is mystery is attractive. Now, there has been many studies going into the concept of what is deemed attractive. And interestingly enough, one of the common themes which shows is that people are most intrigued, most attracted to others whose feelings are unclear. Now, we can't base this definitively on your ex. Everybody's an individual, and every study only has a certain amount of participants. But we have to look at the science, you could say, being proven here, and that is a level of mystery, a level of uncertainty, does seem to breed attractiveness. I would say that mystery is attractive. And if you as a dumpee move forward with your life, if you start to move on, if you start to go to new classes, groups, clubs, make new connections, spending time doing different things to what you did with your ex, maybe your ex finds out via social media, like I said, or any other way, that you are doing a new hobby that perhaps you never ever did with them. That creates mystery. Why are they doing this? They never mentioned that they liked doing this. They never mentioned that they wanted to go jogging. Now I find out they've joined a jogging club. They never mentioned that they wanted to go to yoga, and now I never go into yoga class. These types of things, and obviously hundreds if not thousands of other possibilities, can create mystery and intrigue, and that is attractive. Your ex-dumper may start to believe that you as a dumpee are growing, and you absolutely are. So they would be spot on the money if they actually did think this. You are becoming a version 2.0. And if they start to think that you are growing in a new direction, growing in a way that perhaps they don't even feel confident about, this is going to be attractive. Maybe you're doing things that your ex-dumper could never dream of doing. Maybe you're doing things that you told them you didn't want to do and now you are. This is creating some mystery, some wonder. Why are they doing this now? What is the point? But it is showing you as growing. And unfortunately, as a dumpee, we have to acknowledge that the person who you were, who was dumped, was not right for that relationship. You can't get your ex back if you're exactly the same. Yes, you want to keep your core personality as long as the traits you showed were not overly negative or abusive. As long as you were not that type of person, you want to keep your core self, but you just want to grow. You want to be a better person today than you were yesterday, and a better person tomorrow than you are currently today. Keep growing, keep improving, keep becoming the better version that you can be. Version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Why not? You can be that person. And if you keep this mystery, if you keep this intrigue, if you keep growing, if you keep being somebody that your ex can't predict your next move, this is going to show that you're not the person that they dumped. And ultimately, like I just said, you can't be the person that they dumped because unfortunately, that person was not right for this relationship. If you get your ex back, it will be a brand new relationship. It won't be a continuation of your relationship. That relationship is finished. So you must grow, you must improve, you must intrigue. Now look, I'm not asking you to do anything reckless or rash. If you have long hair, I'm not asking you to shave your hair off. I'm not asking you to get a tattoo if you've never had a tattoo before. You need to think long and hard about any choices you make and make sure that you don't make permanent change without an awful lot of thought. I'm speaking about changes regarding your social improvements, you could say. If you want to make a big, massive change, I'd be very, very careful, because going through a breakup is not the best time to make big decisions. You will make rash decisions, and the decisions could often be regretted. So don't do what I've said. If you've never had a tattoo before, don't get a tattoo. If you've got long hair, don't shave it all off. I'm not speaking about that. I'm talking about maybe you are learning something new. Maybe you're spending time doing different things. Anything that's positive, anything that's growth, that is the mystery we are looking for. Mystery is attractive. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.